when I came into the industry, I started, my first job was 1964, 65. And my first job was bananas. And at that time, bananas were in big stocks. Later, much later, well, maybe a year or two later, about 67, they went into boxes. 10 years after that, the boxes went into containers. So you went from carrying a stock to moving a box to into a container. So if you worked on the ship and you were humping bananas, you know, it took a lot of men to do that on the ship and off the ship. Now, if those same number of boxes are now in a container and they just have to lift a container up with 20 pallets of bananas, I mean, that was really the transition. And I could, you know, dramatize that in the same way for all the other types of cargo that took place. But I think bananas is the easiest way to see it. That transition took place between 1965 and 1980. And by 1980, we were actually into the period of time where they were actually building container ships. The first container ships in 58, 59, and 60s were old, they were old carriers, you know, that maybe carried oil or some other product, and they would just stack containers on the deck. Maybe there'd be 100 containers on the whole ship if they were lucky. When they started building container ships, now you went to 1,000, and today we're at 22,000 TEUs, and a TEU is a 20-foot equivalent container. So this transition took place, you know, from about in my opinion, about 1960, 65. By 1990, you know, the real transition had happened. Very little hand-handled cargo left. The only break bulk cargo you had left was steel, maybe fruit, and, you know, big machineries, roll-on, roll-off, stuff like that. But everything else went in containers. So me and my dad are out at Pier Point Landing in Long Beach. And they had a burrito place there. And so my dad said, hey, let's go to lunch. He worked nights, I worked days. And he says, I'll meet you there at 12 o'clock. So he meets me there, and, you know, we get something to eat, and then you look down from Pier Pass through Long Beach 10, 9, 8, 7 to Long Beach 1. And you have all these traditional ships, like with the standing gear, and you have all these men along the dock working. My dad tells me, you'll never see that again, Dave. When that first container came in, it was a longshore coffin. And every container that comes in after that is a nail in your coffin, and you'll never retire down here. So the workforce that was there before me and my dad's generation felt like it was the end. This transition, there would be no future. That's what they really believed. And so there wasn't an adjustment. They retired, but there wasn't an adjustment. It was my generation that came on as containerization, you know, was in the transition, and we began to see it, that our generation had to adjust to it. A story that I tell to a lot of people, that there was a lot more involved in the adjustment than just work. It was a question of safety. When I was president in 1984, 85, 5 guys were killed in 6 months on the waterfront. And that was because we were all used to cargo moving away from the ship like this with a lift. We weren't used to this. We weren't used to the interchange that was going on a container ship. And all the deaths that took place had to do with the new operations, that the workforce had not fully adjusted, and we didn't have the safety rules. The industry had not adjusted. We had to close the waterfront down for 2 days in 1984, 85, and that was to create new safety rules and to retrain our workforce around safety. And we did that. It helped, but, you know, the injuries continued. Like today, we celebrate what we call First Blood, and it's a combination of when we lost a couple guys back in 34, but more on the back of the plaque down here in San Pedro, there's 68 names. All those guys died on the job, you know. So the reality was there was much more to the transition than just adjusting to work.